I've been umpiring since I was a teenager, really, but I've continued through my adult life. Little League, been doing about 22 years. I will do it as long as they keep asking me back.
I got into umpiring Little League games about 5 years ago because my dad had been a Little League umpire for a lot of years after my brothers and I aged out of the league. He just really enjoyed it, and he talked to me about it one day and said, you ought to try it. So before my kids even got involved in Little League as players, I started umpiring games, and I've loved it ever since.
So after being a parent all those years, decided to become an umpire to kind of give back to North Central and to have something to do Saturday morning because I love the games.
I've been an umpire for NCLL for about 3 years. I didn't know anything about umpiring, but I thought, well, I'll give it a shot. But it really was a lot of fun, and I just had a great time doing it.
The satisfaction you get afterwards from when the kids come up and thank you, which they often do, for doing a good game. The parents often thank you. The coaches certainly do. And that's just a nice feeling to know that I just gave just a couple of hours on a Tuesday evening or a Saturday afternoon to do something for the community that at the same time is a lot of fun.
Well, one of my coaches used to say it's a thinking man's game. Today we would say it's a thinking person's game. But it's always these sort of situational things, that you have to think about even when the action's not going on.
When you're standing behind the plate there and calling balls and strikes, or you're standing out in the outfield and you're going to call safe or out at the bases, you have to watch every pitch. You have to watch every swing. You have to watch everything that's happening in the game. You literally can't think about the rest of your life. It's like meditation.
I think the best part of umpiring is being sort of an integral part of the game. It really feels like, I think, when you're out there on the field that you are part of the game. And so it's in many ways like being a player, except, now that I'm old and decrepit, I can't be a player anymore, but, I can still feel like I'm a integral part of the game.
I have never experienced, as an umpire, I've never experienced real abuse coming from the stands or anything like that. No, hey ump, you suck. No, not even loud complaints, coming from the bleachers like, oh, what is this guy doing? Nothing like that.
It's part of the game that there is a person that's the umpire, and therefore there will be mistakes. That's just the way it is.
So there's this one time that my dad was umping one of my games. There was a pitch, and it was clearly a ball, but my dad called it a strike, and it got me out. After the game, I told him I was pretty upset. We had a little laugh afterwards.
Sometimes the umpire's calls are not, in my opinion, correct. Sometimes it'll be clearly like a ball or whatever, and they'll call it a strike, and that gets frustrating, but you just gotta try to stay calm. And
I think one time when I was pitching, I would try to throw low, because he was behind the plate and he was calling lowish strikes.
I had an experience. I used to do interleague games for neighboring league, and there was a Grandpa Dan who was always in the peanut gallery, just always haranguing me for games. And I finally had to suggest that he tone it down or maybe go home. The only thing he was accomplishing was embarrassing his grandson. And he looked at me and he said, I don't have any grandsons here. So he was just a neighborhood grandpa, liked to show up and be part of the game.
Little League has every level of player in it, and they all have to have playing time. So there are some players who just don't have a lot of experience and have just not been able to quite make this complex thing happen. And when they finally get a hit and get to first base, or they hit their first ball into the outfield, or they hit their first home run, it's just tons of fun. Everybody is just really, really happy, and it's really great.
You don't have to have gone into this being an expert in baseball. You don't have to have played in college or the minor leagues. If you are a reasonably intelligent person, you can pick up the rule book and learn what you need to know. You're going to be surrounded by other people who are going to help you learn what you need to know, not just about the rules, but just about running a game and what that looks like.
Part of my job is recruiting parent umpires. But that's the greatest need that Little League has, because it's an all-volunteer organization. And it's a lot of fun. And I would just say to any parent or grandparent or uncle or any community volunteer, you don't have to be a parent of the Little League in order to umpire these games. I would just encourage everyone listening to this video to consider stepping up and being a community hero, because it's a lot of fun and it's a good thing to do.
At the orientation session, what we show people is that if you can only give us a couple of hours a week on a Saturday afternoon to umpire a game, that's great. You've made a substantial contribution to North Central Little League.
You know, I've met a lot of people that are kind of hesitant about umpiring. My advice to them would be, you know, come to an orientation, get the gear on it, and just try it. It's really a fun experience, and I think if you enjoy the game of baseball or softball, then you will most likely enjoy umpiring.
I would really encourage people to, if they even think about wanting to umpire, to volunteer at the beginning of the season and come do the North Central training, so that you have some idea of the rules and some idea of how to conduct a game and some idea of what support you have.
If you love the game of baseball, there's really no better place to experience that, unless you're a player, as there is as an umpire.
Come into one of our orientations and really learn what it's all about, and, you know, meet the people that you'd be working with. One thing I've learned over the years is the umpire cohort, some of the greatest people you ever want to work with. I rarely have ever met an umpire that I don't consider a friend. It's a great camaraderie, it's a good community, and it's a lot of fun, and you make a lot of new friends.